So I'm taking a break from packing to get back to Rwanda. And I thought that I would just leave the suitcase alone for a minute and have a go at this online quiz, which asks you where your accent is from. And there's a UK version and there's an American version. And by answering a set of questions, it reckons that it can locate where you're from. And I'm kind of interested in this because I have a bit of a split personality when it comes to accents. Um, so my mum is from the Midlands, Leicestershire in England, and my dad is from the north near Carlisle on the border with England and Scotland. And for those who aren't familiar with the UK accents, there are so many of them. There are so many accents in the UK, and sometimes it's hard to believe that such a small island can have so many different accents in it. But there's a particularly big divide between the north and the south. And people from the south of England, we often think that they sound a bit posher because they tend to elongate their A's. So you would say castle, grass, glass. Whereas people from the north of England, which is more traditionally the working class belt, um, tend to make short, sharp A's. So castle, grass, glass. So castle, grass, glass, glass. I mixed those last two up. But the problem is, of course, so my dad's from the north, my mum's from the south, and I alternate. So I've noticed that sometimes, especially when I'm doing like the walking videos, I short A everything. But then if I'm doing sort of a voiceover or a public reading, I long A everything. And sometimes I switch between the two within a matter of sentences. So I'm kind of curious to know what the accent identifier comes up with, because I myself was actually born in the Midlands. I was born in Oxfordshire, but grew up all over the place. So I grew up in Leicestershire, I grew up in Northamptonshire, I grew up in Croydon, I grew up I went to university in Cardiff and in Reading. And so basically, all over the place, as well as my family in Carlisle and in the Midlands. So, poof, who knows where my accent is from. So I'm gonna try it out, and I put the link below and you can follow along with me. And I've also put one below for the Americans out there who can also follow along. And when I've done the British one, just out of sheer curiosity and for fun, I'm also going to do the American one to see where in the US I would be from if I was American. Um, and see whether or not you agree with what it says. So let's give it a go. Okay, so it turns out that this quiz is actually behind a paywall, but it was £2 for 4 weeks. So there you go, New York Times, you've got a new customer. I decided to do it because it looks like fun. So the British Irish dialect quiz. I was raised in Ireland or the UK. Yes, I was raised in England. So the first question, which of these would you use to describe a young person characterised by brash, loutish behaviour and often low social status? I recognise most of these, but which would I use? A chav, I would definitely use that. Scumbag, lout. That feels a little bit leading. What would you use to describe a loutish person, loutish behaviour? Lout, well, yeah. Kev. Yeah, when I was younger, maybe in school I would have used that, but not now. Scally is short for scallywag. I know it, but I wouldn't use it. Scagger. Right, where I grew up, we used scratter. And unfortunately, there used to be a village nearby called Spratton, and we'd call people scratters if they came from there. So a scratter was somebody who was sort of not well dressed or a bit lower social status. It was difficult growing up in the 80s. It wasn't a pleasant time. Ned, yob. Okay, those are the four I'd use. Chav, scumbag, lout, yob. Next. How do you pronounce the words door and paw? Door, paw. For me, I say door, paw, so they rhyme. How do you pronounce, oh, this is a big controversial one. Is it scone or scone? So for me, it's scone. It rhymes with gone. But some people say scone and rhymes with bone, but I would say scone, the hard O. What do you call a small grey bug that curls up into a ball when it's touched? I would call it a woodlouse. Oh my goodness me. You're kidding me. I live in the UK. I had no idea there were this many names for it. I've heard pillbug, but I always thought that was an Americanism. Cheesy bug. Oh my God. Woodlouse is what I would call it, but wow. Wow. Okay. How do you pronounce the words full and fool? Full, fool. Full, fool. They sound the same, they don't sound the same. They don't sound the same to me. Full, fool. Which of these words, if any, would you use for someone you think is stupid? Okay. Idiot. Dose, don't know that. Numpty. Burke. Moron. Pillock. Gowl. Plank. You can say somebody's thick as a plank, but I don't think that I'd just call them a plank by themselves. Thick. Dope. Wazzock. My dad uses wazzock, so I guess maybe that's a northern word, but I use that. Yeah, wazzock. Dummy. TWP, do you think that's short for twerp, maybe? Twerp, tup, tup. Maybe it's Welsh. If there's a W in between other consonants, it's usually Welsh. Melt. Egypt. Egypt is Irish. I'm not going to use that because I think that's something I pick up from television. So in Ireland, you might say, somebody's all right, Egypt. He's an Egypt, isn't he? That's a terrible accent. Sorry about that. Right. As you pronounce them, do the words farm and palm rhyme? Yes, farm, palm. How do you pronounce the words horse and horse the same? So horse is in the animal and horse is in, I've got a really hoarse throat. Yeah, they sound the same to me. Horse, horse, homonym. Which of these words, if any, would you use for feeling cold? Chilly? Nesh foundered, never heard those. Nippy, Baltic, nithered, breast monkeys. Yeah, you're freezing your breast monkeys off. I would use that in a sentence, but not very often, I don't think. Freezing. Arctic, yeah, but I wouldn't use it. I'd use Baltic instead of Arctic. Perishing. Again, I know it, but I wouldn't use it. Parky. Okay, let's carry on. Otherwise, we're going to be here forever. Which of these words, if any, would you use for a baby? Baba, Ben, Ben. My northern family would say Ben, but I probably wouldn't use it. I'd use kid. Little one. Wean, sprog. Wean, babe. Nipper. Babby. Bab. Kid, little one, sprog. Again, sprog is my dad's word, I think, more. Babe and nipper. Anyway, moving on. Would you use to refer to a friend? Pal? Chum? Lad? A lad is a boy, but whether a lad is, to me, is a young man, so whether he's a friend or not. Butty is Welsh. Butty's a very Welsh word. My aunt would use butty. Bro is your brother, not... I guess like inner city slang, your bro is like your friend. For me, it's my brother. Brethren. So a member of my family is in the Masons and they talk about each other as brethren, but I would not. Buddy. Mucker. Man. Hey man. Hey dude. I used to use dude when I was younger, probably not so much now. Sometimes now, a mate. But dude is just a cool person. It doesn't necessarily mean a friend. So pal, chum, buddy, mate. That would be mine. How do you refer to your mother? Mum. Mam. My dad called his mother mam because mam's a very northern word. You're right, mam. But I just use mum. You're right, mum. How do you refer to your grandmother? My nana. Well, you see, my nana was my dad's mum, and my gran. Oh, it's not. Oh, here we are. Granny. Gran was my mum's mum. So my paternal grandmother was Nana, and she was Northern, and my maternal grandmother was Gran, and she was Midlands. So that's how I would have pronounced it. How do you pronounce the words food and good? Oh, I see. So some accents you would say food good, and it would sound the same, but for me, food and good sound different. They don't rhyme. Food good, no. Which of these words, if any, would you use for a piece of long cushioned furniture in the oh, right, okay, yeah. Ooh, well, chaise lounge, yes, but no, that's a very specific type of sofa. I would call it a settee, a sofa, or a couch. Because a divan and a chaise lounge are two very different types of furniture. They don't look the same. So sofa, settee, couch would be my my preference for a general piece of furniture. How do you pronounce the A sound in last? Nah, see, I've just said it last with a hard A, but I can also say last. When was the last time you saw him, I would say. And have you finished at last? I would also say, and this is my problem, is sometimes it's a hard A, sometimes it's a long A. So let's go with what I said automatically, which was last. I think the older I'm becoming, the harder the A is getting. Ah, last. Which of these words, if any, would you use for not showing up for school or work? Oh, so skiving off is what I would call it. Skiving off, bunking off. DOS. I would call somebody a dosser if they're being lazy, but I wouldn't say to DOS off. I don't know. I don't think I would. Bunk off and skive off, and you would ditch school, but I wouldn't just say ditch. Ditch school. Skip a class. You would skip a class. I'd mostly go for bunk off or skive off. How do you? Oh, your granddad. Granddad. I didn't know my mum's dad because he died before I was born, but my dad's side was Nana and Grandad. What is your name for the playground game in which one child chases the rest and anyone who's touched becomes a pursuer? Tag. Yeah, oh, sorry, okay. I didn't get to choose more than one there, but tag was what I would have called it. What do you call the evening meal? Oh, no, this is too much. Absolutely impossible. So, again, it's a north-south divide. It's, I think, Southerners would call dinner the evening meal. And I kept getting into trouble because a few years ago I was organising a group of people visiting Rwanda, and my logistics manager, I asked him to organise dinner for everybody. And I kept getting sort of a funny look until somebody said, but dinner is what you have in the evening, whereas, lunch. So they would say lunch for the midday meal and dinner for the evening meal. But I kept asking if they could organise dinner for midday. And I think I must get this maybe from my dad's side, I'm not sure, because you'd say, I think it's a northern thing to call the midday meal dinner. Are you coming home for dinner time? And then in the evening you'd have supper. So I don't know, what would I never really use any of these meals. It's just, nowadays it's like, are you eating? Are we going to have a meal? What are we eating for? What are we eating for supper? What are we eating for dinner? I don't know the difference. I'm gonna have to make a decision. Are you coming home for supper? Are you coming home for supper? To me, supper is the evening meal. And dinner would be like midday or lunch. Dinner and lunch are interchangeable. Supper would be the evening meal. I'm going to go with that. Oof, it's hard though. I mean, that could change depending on the weather. Which of these words, if any, would you use for a child's soft shoes worn for plimsolls? Yeah, plimsolls would pretty much be it for me, I think. My friend from Bristol, like the West Country, uses daps to refer to flip-flops. And flip-flops are hilarious because you know, they're like the like really cheap rubbery sandals with the little bit between the toe. That go flip flop as you're walking, and it's hilarious because I call them flip flops. My friend will call them daps, and in Australia they call them thongs. And I was going into a bar in Australia in my 20s, and there was a big sign outside that said "No thongs allowed," and I had no idea that they meant flip flops. And I was like thinking, you know, to me, thongs are G-strings, you know, they're underwear. And I thought, who the hell's going to check? You know, how is anybody going to know if I'm wearing a thong or not? So yeah. Which of these words, if any, would you use for feeling unwell, crap, rough? I'm feeling bad, poorly, sick, and under the weather. My God, I have a lot of words I'd use. The other ones I know, but ill, yeah. The other ones I know, but I probably wouldn't use. How do you pronounce the words but and put? But, put. No, they don't rhyme. Which of these words, if any, would you use for running water smaller than a river? Stream. I mean, all of these words can mean that, and I might use them in a writing sense, but what would I call it just off the fly would be stream, brook. Okay, let's just go with that. Which of these words, if any, would you use for heavy rainfall? Pelting down, tipping it down, pouring, pissing it down, definitely. We swear a lot in the UK. I mean, it's just part of everyday discussion. Chucking it down, bucketing it down, raining cats and dogs, lashing. Lashing sounds like a literary kind of, you might say the rain was lashing against the window, but sounds a bit literary. But yeah, we have a lot of words for rain because there is a lot of rain in the UK. Douglas Adams wasn't exaggerating. Oh, we're here. How did we do? So, you can't really see. So Oxfordshire, yes, very, very much so. Well, I was born there, but I'm more from sort of around this this area, the Midlands bit, slightly to the east. Bath, no, not really. Wales, not really. And a little bit up north, but I would expect that to be a bit stronger. Yeah, don't know. So let's have a look. Oh, this one fascinates me. Woodlouse. So woodlouse is, yeah, okay. So everybody I know would call them woodlice, I think. So yeah, that's sort of about right. Bunking off and skiving off is apparently quite localised to the eastern side of England. Bunk, skive. All right, yeah. So supper, what do you call the evening? So supper is more of a Scottish thing and a Welsh thing and a Southern Irish thing. That's interesting. I thought it was more common than that. Are you coming home for supper? Will you be in for supper? All right. Oh, right. What? How do you insult people? Well, I kind of chose pretty much every option there. Idiot, thick, dope, numpty, wazzock, burke, dummy, moron, pillock. So I kind of covered the whole of the UK with that one. All right. It's really hard for me to say because when it says, you know, do you call that bit of bread on the table a roll, a bap, or a bun? I call them all three. Can I have a bread roll? Can I have a bap? Can I have a bun? You know, I will use all three of those. So for me, it's very difficult to kind of narrow it down that much. But you know, it's fairly accurate. A little tiny sliver of northern creeping in there, but mostly down around the south. Slightly more to the west than I would have expected. Okay, so that was really good fun. I'm going to stop now because this video is getting a little bit long, so I'm going to save the American accent test for another video. But just whilst I was going through it, I remembered something from when I was a kid. So with the insults and wazzock. So my dad used to reel off 3 insults together. And it was always in this order. So it was something like, he's a Wally, Wazzock and a Burke. So Wally, Wazzock, Burke. And I have no idea where that comes from. I have to ask him. I'm assuming it's northern because it came out of my dad's mouth. But I was wondering if it's like, is it from a song or something, or a TV show, like, Pee Poo Belly Bum Pants? Or where does that come from? Wally Wozzock and a Burke. He can't have been the only one to ever use it, so if you know, let me know. Also, let me know how you get on with it and whether or not it's accurate at pinpointing your British accent. And also, if there's any fun slang that you grew up with that wasn't in there, drop that below. So let me know the words that you use for these things.